Good morning, everybody.
What's up?
Good to see everybody this morning. We're going to try some stuff on my end to keep the audio from screwing up too much. So bear with us with that because I'm sure I'll mess it up 2 or 3 times during the show. But anyway, Steve, why don't you tell us who is here, please?
Yeah, let me get back to the chat because it just popped off. Oh, righty. Uh-oh, I got to turn the volume down on my thing. Okay, there we go. All right, oh, wait a minute. Greg Church. And I used to work with Greg. Holy moly, what is up? Boy, kick him. Highball the gates. Wow, we got to get Greg on. Okay, anyway, we got old Mr. Anderson. Good morning. Harley Memphis, you're new. Good morning. Ray Bertelson, Rob T-Man, Gerald Stewart. We got Gail, Mark Pruitt. Let's see. Canadian Locomotive Works. Good morning. Lynn McCurdy. Steve Childers, John Dawson. Good morning, John. JD Grandpa Rails, and our buddy Chris Brew. Good morning, Chris. Steve Childers, Stephen Wagwag, and our crazy Bernard over in Nevada. How you doing, Bernard? Oh, let's see. Who else we got? Who did I miss? I got.
How about new fella? Did you get that new fella, Steve?
Oh, I'm looking for him. Where'd he go? I got Steve Childers. No, I don't see him. I know I missed some.
and 18 Steve.
I'm looking for it. Oh, I don't see it. I don't see it. Anyway, I'm all flustered having Greg on here. Wow. Welcome back, Greg. Anyway, good morning, everybody.
Hey, Hartley's been here 5 times.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't been here in a while, so
Okay.
Maybe I missed it.
Did you get Mike Dunstan?
Morning, Jack.
I think so. Okay.
If we missed you, good morning. Thank you for being here.
Steve, it's Steve. Is it Cheryl? Cheryl?
Yeah, that's him.
The 018 division, West Virginia. Okay. Anyway, good morning. Okay, Claude, take it away.
It's good to see everybody. I hope everybody had a good week. If you weren't here for last week's show, and I can't imagine how you weren't since we had almost 60 on here at one point, and that's way above what we normally have. So thank you guys for being here. We had a great show last week. It was a really good show. I thought.
It was good.
Yeah,
it was really good.
So this morning we're not doing anything. Actually, because of this buzz, I don't hear it, but everybody else does. I'm sure you guys probably hear it on your end too.
It doesn't buzz when
the show.
It buzzes when the 3 of us talk on your end.
See, I don't hear it at all, though, out of mine.
You're lucky.
Zip it, Dennis.
Zip it. Hey, Dennis, show everybody what you were showing us in the green room. Your car.
Show us the decals that you were showing us earlier, Dennis.
Okay, I'm going to turn my camera around so people can actually. Of course, the light is not very good.
Of course. I think it looks great.
I like it.
I've got 1 coat of satin on top of the decals. I'm going to do 1 more before I start weathering. And then hopefully any little bit of flash that remains on the decals will disappear when I finally get it all dull coated like it's supposed to. But this is a rail line car all of the grabs and the end detail and the brake levers, and pretty much if it's above the surface of the car, it's an add-on detail, like all these little things right through here. Whew. I'll tell
Were
you
they?
what,
That's metal. That's
they're all plastic.
all plastic.
Now the grabs are all metal. The brake lever is not provided in the kit, so I bent that by eyeball looking at a Blackstone. And what I did was I just put of course I can't, everything is backwards to me since I don't have it mirrored, but there's a nub sticking straight out of the car here and a nub sticking straight out of the car there, which
Yeah.
the brake lever's just sitting on. So, as long as you don't look close, you can't really tell. So there she is. That's my very first.
I can't see it from my house. It's okay.
Oh. the first official OC and RG BoxCar for the railroad. So should finish this up today, I hope.
Yeah, it looks really good. What trucks you got to put on it?
I'm putting on KD 720s, which if anyone knows, hey, this is what you should use, and you can actually find it, I'm absolutely, willing to take advice on that, because I don't feel like I've found the trucks that I really want yet.
Well, hey, Dennis, Jason wants to know if you're going to give away them to promote your channel.
If I'm going to what?
He says, Dennis, you giving away to other channels to promote your channel on their layouts like Joe Rader and Crooked River and Eastern.
Giving away cars?
Yeah, my internet is just lousy. The short answer is no, because it took me an entire weekend to build this car, so it's not like I'm going to build a bunch of cars to send out to other people's railroads. And, the decals are not cheap either, so, I might send some to Heath because Heath sends something to me, but I don't think Heath would even use them. They won't fit on his cars, so.
So no.
No.
That would be a no.
I was waiting for you to say that. Just, no.
Well, I mean, I will not say that there might not be a possibility in the future, but there's way too much energy in this car to, consider, because it would be, my goal is to have a entire train, locomotive, 10 cars, caboose, all for the Otter Creek and Rio Grande. But I'm not in any hurry to build that train yet, because I've got too much railroad to build to spend a bunch of time on the car. Hey, Scott.
City Scale trucks.
What's he say here? Precision scale trucks that take a little more work. That means they're all brass, right? Precision scale. I don't like those trucks. You're right. They take. I wouldn't use the word little. I would use the word a lot more work personally. But
have you looked at Grant Line? I think it's Grant Line.
I cannot find any HO N3 trucks on Grant Line. I haven't called them yet.
Froze up.
Yep, he froze up. Dennis, you froze up.
He froze up.
Oh, there you are. You're back.
in my
Yeah,
back.
I think they have a nice looking truck, if I'm not mistaken, but
Not
I
an
don't have one.
HON3. Not an HON3. An HO30, because I bought some of them thinking that I was getting HON3. So now I've got 4 pair HON30 that I can do nothing with. So,
Well,
Hey, a little back history on Greg Church popping in here. Greg was on the first switch job I ever worked with the Santa Fe. I had just hired out. It was a midnight job.
are you saying he's still laughing?
Who?
Greg.
Oh yeah, Greg probably.
Greg,
It was a very rainy night in Richmond, and it was job. I believe it was. If correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say 205 or 305 in the belt, and Chuck Orozco was the engineer, and it was one crazy night. Man, that goes. We go way back. Yeah, you're laughing. Yeah, you remember. You
Is,
remember Chuck?
is Greg retired?
Yeah, yeah. And the funny thing is, Greg's good friends, and I think you still live next to him, Charlie Green. I grew up with Charlie and his family, and it turns out Greg and Charlie are all good friends. It's a small world, but welcome to the show, Greg. I don't know how you found it, but you have to keep in touch. Let's see. Oh, good old Anderson. Yeah, sounds like Greg needs to see me back up a bus. Okay. Yeah.
Well, we got a lot of retired railroaders come in here.
Yeah, we got Dave Todd's in here too.
Dave Todd. Yeah.
Good morning, Dave.
Maybe we could get your whole crew in there.
Wouldn't that be fun? Hey, Greg, who was the foreman on that job? I'm trying to remember. He had a brother that worked there, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. Yeah, you're living in Washington State, not too far. Shoot, if you ever get down here on I-5, drop by.
We could have like a show of old railroaders.
Oh, wouldn't that be fun?
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Who all do we
I
have?
thought
We
we
got
were a
Dave.
bunch of old railroaders.
Say again, Phil?
I thought we were a bunch of old railroaders.
Real railroaders.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway,
Anyway,
well, I was going to tell you, Dennis, I've got some Central Valley narrow gauge trucks, but the problem with them is they don't have, they don't have all the brake detail and all that kind of stuff on there. If you want that on it.
I don't know that that's a deal breaker for me. The main thing I want is just something that works well, which, the 720s, these are the 2-piece that you have to put together. As long as you're really careful about how they go together, they work reasonably well. You have to be careful that you don't end up with any kind of twist or like one pause in the air as it's going down the rails. If you end up with that when you glue it together, they're not going to work well. But they work okay.
Well, the Central Valley are all metal and they're sprung, so you can take them and just do this with them, but they're still rolled nice and flat.
Yeah.
The big problem with them is the hole in where they go up to the bolster is not very big. So getting a screw small enough to hook it on, put it on the car is the only really worry there.
Doesn't KD make any? Like the KD coupler people, don't they make any trucks? No?
Well, that's what Dennis was saying he has, is the KD trucks.
That's what these are, KD 720s.
Oh, you don't like them?
My internet is just trash today, guys. Sorry. It's just trash. I can't hear what anyone's saying. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yeah, we got to chip in and get him Starlink. Come on, Dennis.
Oh, Anthony has a question. Has anyone had success assembling Walther's tank car kits with all the metal detail grab irons and ladders?
I didn't know they made any.
I think I have some, but I think I bought them already assembled.
Probably Joe Reader.
Because I don't buy anything directly from Walther's. They don't carry anything that I have other than buildings and stuff, and even those, you know, they're all plastic kits and stuff, which most of the kits I have on my ladder are all wood. So I can't really answer that, but I think I have some out there that I bought that were already put together, and I don't know what kind of shape they're in, so I can't really answer your question, Anthony. I do have a lot of Blair line kits and stuff like that for the narrow gauge cars that are all wood. Most of them are wood kits, Craftsman wood kits for cars that you got to put together, and they all have the grab irons and stuff for them. So I'll have that fun too at some point.
Anthony, are they older kits? I didn't know Walther's made kits.
Well, I don't know if it's kits or if the car comes mostly assembled and it's all the detail you got to add to it. That may be what he's talking, older kits. This is really...
What's the matter? What did I miss?
Apparently, I'm elderly. I don't know if anyone can hear me now or not.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I think bad internet goes hand in hand with the elderly.
Well, I'm older than you are. Mine's okay now.
If you buy the Walther's kit, okay. If you buy the Walther's kit, then it's old. Okay. That's more than I know already.
How many of those kits do you have, Anthony?
See, Bernard knows he knows the neighborhood. We're all over.
Bernard's just crazy.
Of
course, not as crazy as Anderson.
Nobody's as crazy as Anderson.
Sorry, I'm putting wood in my wood stove.
Wow, you got 9 of them.
Next thing you'll see him throwing trains in there.
Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I should do that.
Well, if you had all the kits I've got, they'd actually burn pretty well in there since they're all wood.
This is a fairly true statement. I agree with what Lynn's saying here. A very detailed car kit looks great up close, but even a Tyco well detailed at 50/50 looks fine. 50 feet, 50 mile per hour. I like that. Very true.
Well, that held true, you know, when I was building airplanes and I was doing quarter scale and third scale airplanes. And you just put a little bit of detail on them, and from 10 feet away, you can't tell the difference. And when they're in the air, you damn sure can't tell. So we call this, you know, standoff scale. If you could stand 5 feet away and it looked good, that was good enough. The only guys that got more detail in their stuff were the guys that went to the Top Gun event in Florida every year, and they were invited from all over the country, and they had to be within 10% of the prototype, which is tough to do in any scale. Their paint colors even had to be correct. So,
Of course,
but
Ribbon
you know,
down.
most guys in the hobby didn't do that.
when you model, depending on who you are, it's as much about the modeling part of it as it is the finished product. You know, if it's important to get the model right, then you do that. If it's not, then you don't. Right? Whether you
Yeah.
can see it or not, it's an individual thing.
Yeah, I think most any hobby is more the journey than the destination. You know, that's just my opinion, but I think that's why I like building airplanes and I like building railroad. Yeah, I'm working with my hands, and to me, that's the hobby. It's not what I end up with, it's how I get there.
That's exactly how I feel. That's one of the reasons why I have no anxiety about my railroad, because the way I view this room is that I've got the rest of my life to always look forward to coming in here and having something to do. Whether or not I quote unquote finish it is not really part of the equation.
Mm. Speaking of which, why don't you show us what you've been doing, Dennis?
Yeah, that's
If you
probably
can.
why, 'cause Anthony.
Do you think you can?
No, because the only way I have internet at the moment is because I'm using my PC, which has no capability of turning the camera around.
Bummer.
It seems like something weird has happened in the last month to 30 days with my internet. I could reasonably get internet in here on my iPad. My iPad now, for some strange reason, will not pick up the internet at all.
It's called
It
paying
literally
cable
will
bill.
take you completely off of the internet and completely disconnect at the moment. So
It's called paying your bill.
no, I need to call my provider and see if they've upgraded the service and my router is now maybe technically no longer in compliance with the new technology. That would be my guess, because that's happened before.
Probably need a new one.
Yeah, that's what I need to do. And then I'm going to ask him if there's a separate booster that I can put in the railroad room.
No,
Well,
just get Starlink.
You can buy a booster at the store and do that. It's just a repeater is what it is, an extension.
But you have to
And they're
figure out
easy
how
to set
to
up.
get that to because I've done that and I had no luck connecting it with my router. It would. I bought two different ones. I couldn't figure out how to get either one of them connected to my router.
Then wants to know if you plugged it in or unplugged it and plugged it back in.
Yeah, I've done that, but I mean, if it's not working at all, that does it. But when it is working, it doesn't. You know what I mean? I either have it or I don't, and I've got it. It's just crappy.
That's because you live out in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
happy to live in the middle of nowhere.
I need to put my phone on the dash of the car and drive to your house and just show everybody where in the hell you live.
Well, anybody who's really curious where I live probably has already Google mapped it.
Yeah.
And can see how, far removed I am from everything.
Yeah. Yeah. What was funny is when you told me where you lived, and I did that very thing. I looked it up on a satellite view, and I knew immediately I had been by there because it's you're right off 412, and I remembered the silos there.
Mm-hmm.
Because about half the places you pass on 412 going out to New Mexico are like that. They're just little bitty whistle stop places that used to be the center of a county or whatever, and aren't anymore. But yeah, so now they're just down in the middle of nowhere. Everybody giving you information on your internet use.
Do you actually have a satellite dish, Dennis?
No,
Oh, you don't have a satellite dish for internet. Somebody said take the snow off of it.
I think they're just being smart asses. That's just a guess. Because that's what everyone does.
Let's see, chat. I can remember dialing up a party line. I remember party lines.
Gail is so right on that. Just coming from Woodward to your house would be like that. Okay. Anyway, Jerry, are you working on anything?
I was put some log bunks on Walther's kid. Well, not a kid. Walther's bulkhead flat. That's about it. Finished up my loading dock. It turned out good. I got a video out on it. So
Have you got any track laid yet?
no, not even close.
What's your plan as far as how you proceed? Do you have I don't know what the word is, goals in mind of what comes next, ABC, that kind of thing?
Well, I want to get my backdrop figured out and done and put up, and then start with everything else. I want to get that sort. I don't want to work over things to put my backdrop up. I'm not in a hurry,
Right.
so
Are you planning on building all of your structures before you lay your track, or is it going to be a kind of have a structure, put some track out? Do you have a track plan in mind already, or is it just kind of a flex thing?
I have a track plan sort of in mind. John 26:18 helped me do one, but it's not until I start putting down track that I'm going to lock into something. It'll give me an idea, but structure-wise, no, I don't have any structures built, just a loading dock. So I'll probably most likely scratch build structures. I'm not going to have a lot of buildings, a lot of structures on my layout, but maybe 2, 3. That's about it.
Is it? I presume it's a switching layout.
Yeah, it's a switching layout. It's only 8 foot, so I don't want to put a lot and then kind of not really be able to do anything because I got so much on it. You understand?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I see a lot of guys. 29.
Jack says, yeah, you might get it done in 2099.
Small layouts, they don't like it because there's too much going on. They really can't do anything. Not that you can do a lot, but some people suggest just having one industry on an 8 foot layout. I'll probably have 2, something like that. I don't know. We'll see.
It just goes to what you're interested in doing with your layout.
Yeah.
What do you want to do with the hobby? Do you want to, build structures? Do you want to run trains? What do you want? So just go with that. You put your track down, you may decide you want, put an extra industry in or something. You never know. Yeah. But you can always do that. That's the good thing. That doesn't mean just because you put something in that you can't take it out and change it.
Oh yeah, no, I know that.
Do something else. So it's excuse me, and I'm not able to talk today.
Yeah, I'm not locked into anything, so
Well,
What do you view yourself as enjoying the most about the hobby? Is it the trains, the equipment?
I think I like
What draws you to the hobby?
all parts of it. I mean, I like the trains.
Do I?
I like all parts of it. The trains, building stuff, scenery work. I like all of it. I don't, just like one part of it.
There's not one thing
That I like
that
doing more.
inspires you more than any of the others.
No. I think it's
No,
all, to me, it's all the same except the wiring. I'm not like big on wiring, but to me, whether you scenery, you build kits, they're all kind of like you're building something. You're taking something from nothing and finishing with it. You know what I mean?
I think
Yeah.
Jerry's favorite part of the hobby is hanging out with us.
Yeah.
well, that's true because to me, this is as much fun as working on my layout. So it was the same way when I was flying airplanes. To me, I always told people half the hobby for me was building the airplanes. The other half was hanging out with the guys at the field. If I flew the airplanes, that was gravy. So it's kind of the same way with my trains. I like working on it, and when I'm doing that, when I'm motivated to do it, when I'm doing that, it's great. But I don't have to be doing that to have a good time with the hobby. I've met a lot of good friends in the hobby, so that to me is the most rewarding part of it. And to answer a couple of questions, Lynn, no, this is kind of common for me anymore with the old age kind of stuff. And somebody asked me about what's on my hand. Is this what you're talking about? It's just a splint on my finger. I had trigger finger on here real bad, and I'm trying to rest it because it got real sore. So I'm trying to keep from using it, and that's all that is. Nothing big.
So do you like, my question to all you guys is, do you like one part of the hobby more than the other?
You're talking about us on the screen here?
Anybody here or anybody out there?
Well, for me, I got into the hobby kind of initially because I was looking at ways to build scenery. So that's what initially drew me to the hobby. So the modeling and scenery, I think, is the thing that I probably enjoy the most. And then the trains and the cars and those kind of things has always been a little bit secondary to me. I don't care that much about prototypes and this, that, and the other. I want to create a scene for the sake of the scene as much as I do the railroad aspect of it. But once I started doing things and actually found a purpose for operating, it kind of shifted a little bit to where now operating the trains is kind of right up there with the scenery and the building of the models. They're pretty closer than I thought they would have been when I first started in the hobby.
So you got into the hobby not for the trains, for the scenery. So like you could have just did slot cars or something and scenic those, or
yeah. Literally when my dad gave me a model railroader magazine that he'd bought at Walmart. Of course, dad messed with trains a little bit when I was a kid, and I have vague memories of those. But he brought me a model railroader magazine because I was trying to build scenery for my tabletop miniatures games that I was playing.
Oh yeah,
He said, if you really want to know how to do scenery well, wham, he threw that on the desk, there at work. And I was like, oh, wow.
it's kind
so then the very first train store I went into, I was like, I want to build a train. What am I looking for? And so I bought a UP B23-7. I probably got that wrong, but it was like in the early 90s, like 1993, 1995, I think, when I first bought my first train. I could care less what it was. I just wanted to create something that the train could go back and forth on and then build hills, mountains, and trees.
And how old were you, Dennis?
25,
Wow,
maybe
okay, so
23.
you got in relatively late in life.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And and then I had a break because of life's circumstances. My first in-scale railroad, ended up moving and it got tore down and it never got rebuilt again. But it was, it was kind of a shelf layout, but it did have a back staging yard, but I didn't put any effort into how trains should operate. I only found out later on in my next in-scale that if you actually do a little bit of planning and be a purpose to actually doing it besides having trains go around in circles.
Yeah.
And that's
I think
really
that's actually
been more of a
that's
driving
kind of a
force with this railroad.
that's kind of a common denominator with people, that they get into the hobby and then life kind of pulls them out and then you get back in again.
Yeah. If you don't have your forever home, it definitely can be a deterrence.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think it's just the overall creating something, building something. That's always been a driving force for me. I've worked with my hands all my life and whatever I was doing at work. So that kind of thing to me is the most satisfying. Making little miniature stuff to me is fun to do. When I was doing airplanes, a lot of times I was in the hardware store and specialty drawers, right? All the little fasteners and all kinds of little specialty things that they have at the hardware store. And they'd always come over and say, "What are you looking for?" I said, "I don't know. I'll know when I see it." Because I'm not going to use it for what it's made for. I'm going to put it on a model airplane and it's going to hold this, or it's going to do that, or look like this. And so to me, that was fun, trying to find some ordinary item that had nothing to do with what I was trying to make it look like.
Yeah.
And getting it to look like that to me was a lot of fun.
I kind of think if you're involved in this hobby or any hobby, you're a creative person. You want to create things, whatever it is you want to create. And Dennis, I never knew that you were into wargaming and things like that.
Not either.
Yeah, somebody was saying in one of my chats one day, he says, Dennis was wargaming. I'm like, Dennis? I don't know. Dennis? Like,
I've got a whole cabinet full of 28 millimeter figurines that I painted.
Yeah, I didn't know you were into that. But yeah, I can see where you wanted to do things diorama-wise for those.
Yep.
So you're pretty good at painting tiny things, though. Maybe not so much now.
I would say I'm competent. I wouldn't say that I'm, there's painting well, there's slapping paint on, there's competent painting, and then there's next level crap that people can do that I'm like, I don't think I would even want to adventure into trying to do that. I'm a competent miniature painter. That's probably the best
Can we
way
get Gail's? Can we get Gail's opinion on the competent remark?
What does she say?
I mean,
I just want to hear. I don't know what she's going to say.
I'm not gonna say that I'm.
I wasn't talking about.
You're asking someone who. Oh well.
I wasn't talking about painting. I was just talking in general. Well, that's the whole thing is you only have to be good enough for yourself. And usually
Yes.
if you're fairly creative, you're going to be your worst critic anyway. So I learned early on, anytime painting, didn't matter if I was painting inside a house or painting models, there's a point where you stop. You quit trying to be great at it, you know, to get it perfect. Because if you do that, if you try to do that, you'll actually make it worse. So I learned that early on, you know, get it right the first pass through, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore, and just be satisfied with it.
You could spend a lot of time getting something perfect, and you just wasted time. Really.
Well, I was like that when I was, you know, when I was working. I'd do something, and I'm thinking, man, this could be a lot better. And then the customer would come in and just, you know, be overjoyed with what it looked like. So
Yeah.
I had to learn to not be so critical of my work, but it's not easy. I mean, for me, it's not easy anyway.
I think anybody that creates like that, they're always trying to better themselves, and most people don't see it. You know, they don't see all the effort that you put into it.
Well, for me, I think a lot of times it was I'd seen other people's work, whether it's models or painting or building or anything else, and trying to replicate that as opposed to just doing the job and doing it as well as I could do it. It was like I was trying to compete with somebody else and I didn't even know, you know, because they did this part and I thought it looked really good. I wanted mine to look that good.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, that was a long journey of having to be satisfied with what I was able to do. And in doing that, I got better. I learned tricks like not pushing too far, trying to get it perfect and saying, good enough, you know, like standoff scale, you know, that kind of stuff. And to me, then it looks better. Now I can take you up to my layout and show you, and you go, oh, that looks fantastic. And I can show you all the stuff on there that I'm not super happy with, but overall it looks good. And when people come in, they like it. So it's, you know, I don't have anybody come in and go, oh, that looks terrible. Now they might be thinking that, they don't say it, but you know, that's kind of the thing I'm after. It's, I want it to look good enough that when somebody walks in, they like it.
I had an artist friend. She used to paint, and she told me once, you could spend a lot of time. She could spend a lot of time painting, and it could never be done, but it needs to be done. You know, you gotta know when it's done and walk away from it, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's true. There's got to be a point where you're finished. It's like doing a good example is drywall mud.
Yeah.
You know, putting drywall mud or drywall compound on a sheetrock wall. It looks really easy, and it isn't hard, but it's hard to get it to look good. And the only hard part about it is don't try too much. You know, don't keep spreading it until it's perfect, because you're never going to get it like that. You have to put it on there and leave it, and then sand it a little bit if you have to, put another coat on. But you don't just keep working the compound with the trowel, trying to get it perfect, because you won't ever do that. And what you end up doing is working all the moisture out of the compound, and then it really becomes difficult. It just gets to looking worse and worse. And I think that happens with whatever you're doing. I think when you push too hard in there to get it perfect, you end up screwing the whole thing up.
It's kind of like when you paint models, you know, you want to finish the product right then, right? So you just glob on the paint, right? And then it looks like crap. But if you would have just did little coat, and had some patience, it builds, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It can be anything you're doing in life in general, pretty much, that
Yeah.
I've found anyway. If you're building something or putting something together like that, there's a point where you just stop and be satisfied with it, and you'll be
Yeah.
a lot happier than if you just keep pushing.
So it's kind of like, yeah, I could just throw down track and be done with it and start running trains, right? But it's like I'm acquiring skills all along the way to make it so it's not so frustrating, right? And that's how I look at it. I'm not in a hurry to run trains or do anything because I'm building all this knowledge and building all this skill to get there one day. And if I get there, I get there. I don't, I don't. But I got all this knowledge.
Yeah.
It's slightly different because you're not in a hurry. The painting thing that you said, where you want to finish model right now,
Yeah.
you think you can do it all in one sitting. You can't. It takes layers to get it to look like what you got in your mind of it should look like. It's hard to sit and do the whole thing. I remember when I used to build plastic models when I was a kid. I wanted to do the whole thing in one sitting. Well, they all looked like crap because you can't do it that way. You just can't.
Well, and then you blow it up anyway. So.
Oh yeah. Those were all the ones that got the fireworks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Patience is probably the number one asset in the hobby, that can't be overstated, is that the more you want to have the results that you want right now, usually the worst things end up being. That's why I'm deliberately staying away from anything scenery until I would like to go at least 9 months with knowing that all of my track work is solid. I foresee having to exchange a couple more turnouts here and there, doing a few other tweaks with the track work, because you can't have a good working railroad with piss poor track work. So that's kind of where I'm at, is making sure that all that is exactly the way I want it, and it's working good for me.
Here's a question. You spend all this time, and I don't know the answer. I don't know if anybody knows. You spend all this time getting the track work right, and you perceive that it's right. You got this, everything. It's good. And then something happens, and then like 5 months, 3 months, 2 months, 2 years down the road, it turns, and something's wrong with it. Right? I mean, it can happen, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, that goes with anything.
That's where the choice of the materials you use becomes important. To bring up Boomer, who we tend to bring up all the time in the hobby because he's doing such good things. If you use that matte medium, just a little bit of alcohol on top of it will soften that matte medium, and then you can immediately begin working that track. You can remove complete sections, put it back in. You should be able to work it. And now it's going to be a disappointing thing to have to do after you've done your scenery, but if you don't approach it as a catastrophe, oh my gosh, I put all this work in and now it's destroyed. If you just look, okay, here's something that I have to do in order to get my railroad back to working condition. I'm mentally prepared that it's going to happen, and this is what I need to do to fix it. Everything's fixable. It's just the amount of time and effort, and how often do I have to do it. Do as much as you can to ensure that it doesn't happen, but then be prepared both mentally and choice of materials to fix it later on down the road.
It's kind of like the real railroad, right? I mean,
Exactly.
I mean, tracks bend, tracks break, tracks do whatever, and you just go in, you fix
Trains
it.
derail.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the real railroad. Stuff happens.
Yeah, no matter how good you do it, and how well planned you are, we're all human. We all screw up. So one of my favorite sayings was, if it's man-made, it's subject to be screwed up from the very beginning, or will be somewhere down the line. Because nobody's perfect, no matter what they're doing. So
if you're working in the cold,
you have to be okay with that.
Yeah, if you're working in the cold, be sure and put in some expansion joints, because if you have fluctuations in temperatures and apparently moisture content in the room, it is a real thing, and it can wreak havoc on your track. So keep that in mind as you're doing your track work. Trust me, I know.
So is that why your section twisted up and bent on you?
Yeah, because like all of the plywood, when I build anything on a sheet of plywood and lay as much track as I can out, I've done that in the summer, right? Generally speaking, it's hot out there. When you come in here and you turn the air conditioner on after you bring it out there, that track will shrink back. So I don't think I've had any issues on any of the plywood. But on the spline, which I'm of the opinion the spline doesn't move much. Sorry, I just don't think it does. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I think the track itself, because if I laid it in the air conditioning, which this last section I laid in the air conditioning in the middle of summer, and then the second I turned that heater on and it went from, cool 68 degrees in here to 72, but the difference is the heat hitting the track, it just made all of that track expand.
Boy, you got quiet.
I've put track on all of those personally. If you saw my layout from the very beginning, my sub road bed is a variety of things. And yeah, most of my track is actually sitting on cork, either cork sheet or cork road bed, one of the two. But the sub road bed is a variety of different things. But the thing about my layout is in the house, in an air conditioned and heated all the time. So the temperature up there doesn't fluctuate probably 10 degrees from one to another. You're not going to get a lot of moving with that.
Yeah, in my room, it's like it's hard to explain, but it's hotter in here in the winter time than it is the summertime. It's just opposite of the way you'd think it ought to be, but that's just kind of the way it is. The only place I've got 3 places where I've used foam as any kind of sub road bed. That's the Time Saver, which I regretted that. If I were to do it again, I would not have put any foam on it. And then 2 sections on either side of the Time Saver, I added the foam just because it was the easiest way to get track height adjusted. And then, yes, I've got cork glued to the top of the foam in both of those sections. But I prefer cork on top of plywood is my preference. Which wouldn't be a preference if I was building any kind of mobile layout, right? If you need to move your layout from point A to point B, foam is probably the best way to do it because it's nice and light.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, and temperature, you see it written all the time in Monroe Rotor or other places and talked about. expansion joints and stuff. And it is a thing. If you're going to have different temperatures exposed to different temperatures, whether it's a mobile layout or like Dennis's is, then you've got to plan for that, because otherwise it's going to creep up. It may not look like it for a long time. Like Anthony said, he had one turnout that's been in there for 6 years popped out. You know, that can happen. You know, so, and it's weird because it doesn't take as much as you think to get it to do that, but it will do it. It will move.
Yeah. Which I knew that it was probably going to happen. And I told myself when I laid that, I need to put expansions in the straightaways in the sections that I could. The thing is that the bus line that's running there is temporary. And so I didn't want to add feeder drops, because the second you cut it, I would have had to have add feeder drops on the bus line. I didn't want to do that because I want to do that once. I want to do it right, and I want to do it the way I want it to be. And so I kind of put that off and then forgot that not putting the expansion joints in there was going to cause problems. But, you know, it is what it is. You live, you learn. Hopefully I'll remember next time.
Well, the good thing about expansion joints is you can always go in with a Dremel and cut expansion joints.
Oh yeah, they're easy to
After the
make.
fact.
It's just a matter of, if you do make them and you don't want to introduce a rail joiner, you know, you have to, you're going to have to provide electricity to the new section of track. So,
Yeah.
and that's what I didn't want to do, and that's why I didn't do it at the time.
You know, on both sides of wherever you put the expansion joint, especially after the fact, if you cut it, you have to do something with that.
Yeah.
That's just like my top, the last part of the layout, that track work I built in two sections. Well, I built it all as one and then cut the rail all the way across to be able to bring it upstairs, so I could bring it in two sections. And then when I put it back together, I did go back in and solder those joints back together. But there again, I don't have the movement that you get in some place like where Dennis is. If you're in a garage or something like that, you're going to have a lot more fluctuation in temperature. I don't have that in the house. So that's a benefit of being in the house, but then you also have to get your wife to give you the room. He's an amazing painter. I wasn't talking about his painting, Gail. Well, we got about 2 minutes left, guys. Any more snow you want to throw on this?
Snow.
You know, I saw a little bit of commentary about cork, foam, things like that. To me, it doesn't, I don't really have a strong opinion about what you should do, right? The reason I didn't like the foam and the time saver was the distance it created for the actuation of my turnouts.
Turnouts.
So if you're using, you know, ground throws and or, you know, you're just flipping it with your switch, who cares how much distance you have? But if you're going to use any kind of side-to-side actuator, especially the bendy ones like a tortoise, that is something to consider, because it does complicate how well that works. It just, that was my whole thing, is that it's very easy to do with a 1/2 inch of plywood and a 1/4 inch of cork. You know, there's a lot more room for error in how perfectly you put that switch motor in and the size of wire you use. You increase that distance from your motor to the switch, and that all becomes a lot more fiddly.
Yeah, maybe like if you want to use foam, don't get the 2-inch foam. Get like 1 inch or 3/4 inch foam. You know, I'm just saying. Like Bernard says, he wants to use foam because of temperature swings. So don't get 2-inch thick foam. Get thinner foam. I don't.
No, I didn't hear any of that. I cut out. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Everybody else heard it.
We heard it.
Well, that's our hour, guys. Thanks for everybody being here and putting up with us. What
Thank
Gail
you,
say?
Wolf.
You can just send me.
Venmo him $100.
Okay. If you're handing out money. Anyway, thanks Jerry and Dennis and Steve. We will see you back here next week.
Have a good week.
About jury duty. I have jury duty all week, so that ought to be fun. I might have some stories to tell.
Oh yeah.
Thanks for everybody in the chat being here, and hope you have a great rest of your weekend and a good week, and we'll see you next weekend.
See you next week. Stay out of trouble.